How are you?
I'm good. How are you, Jess?
Good, good. My gardener is here, so I hope you can't hear it.
Uh, oh, I could hear it a little bit, but it's okay. It's not going to bug me.
Okay, good. So, thank you guys so much for joining us. Please comment down below and let me know if you have ever used colostrum, if you have a dog, if you have a cat, if you are interested in learning more about this product. Um, Sean, thank you for joining us. Oh,
Trying to figure out technology here. Yeah, I'm excited to talk about this. This is a really cool topic that it's becoming more known on the human side, I think, because a lot of people are having benefits, but it's been around for pet products for a long time. But I think there's maybe a lot of misunderstanding about it. So hopefully I can clear that up and then just kind of best ways to use it, since that's the title, using colostrum for dogs. We've actually, really evolved the way we recommend to use it
oh,
because of what we've heard, and the form of colostrum that we're using is very different. So excited to talk about all that.
yeah. So my first thoughts when I think about colostrum, I'm very like, I just have a bleeding heart, right? So like
Yeah.
I I am very concerned with sourcing, with the ethics of it,
Yep.
and knowing that. So like I truly have like this product, and then
Yep.
literally a doctor in Florida that you have to call him to get his colostrum product. That's it. That's all I got for colostrum because I'm so picky about it. And I can imagine though, like animals self-select so much in the wild. So I can imagine like if you have a dog or even a cat, let's say, that like lives on a ranch on a farm, and there are cows or goats that are having babies, they may like go and just try to get some of that
Oh, for sure.
all the time, whether they just have a baby or not, like whether it's the colostrum or whether it's just the milk, like it's probably a big part of like what any animal on a farm would try to get in their body. So can you tell me a little bit about like what exactly it is so people understand why I'm so particular about where I'm sourcing?
Yes, for sure. Yeah, so explaining what colostrum is, it's the mother's cow's first milk. So we want to be clear, we're using bovine colostrum. Um, the colostrum that we source is from non-GMO, non-hormone, or I shouldn't say vaccinated. We'll get into that though. Non-hormone injected cows from Canada. So these, when we set out to create this product, our gut health, we really were concerned about the sourcing on this because, yeah, there is a lot of ethical kind of things surrounding it. However, what we quickly found out when we found a quality source was that uh, when you look at how colostrum, especially in the dairy side, is being produced, the mother cow, once from the time she gives birth, the first 24 hours is the most vital time to get that calf that colostrum. That sets up the gut for that cow that's going to be, almost 2,000 pounds for the rest of their life. And think about a dairy farm, especially a really well ran dairy farm that has healthy animals, especially that are grass fed and that are living a healthy life. You can't afford to have sick calves. You're gonna, just from like a financial standpoint, it's a really big deal to lose a lot of money and have all these sick cows, because then you do have to create all those interventions, antibiotics, which we'll talk about, and further veterinary bills, which get really costly when it comes to the dairy world. So when we talk about a good colostrum, like, not only does the mother cow have to be producing this really potent concentrated milk that literally sets up the calf's gut for the rest of their life, but that animal needs to eventually produce milk too, if it, on that side. So it's a really important thing to note. The other side is, are we stealing the milk from the calf? And I hear that question quite a bit. From what I understand, I'm not a dairy farmer, but from what I understand, the mother cow produces so much of this milk, anywhere to the tune of around 6 to 8 times more than the calf can actually consume. Now, the calf is consuming quite a bit right away, and it is vital that they get that specific milk within the first 24 hours because it has all these different growth factors and immune boosting ingredients. But there's so much excess, and a lot of times on these, like, big industrial dairy farms, they usually throw that away. It goes to waste. So it's just like if anything, ethical wise, that we should be concerned about is like, why aren't we using more of that? And why aren't we as people like trying to source that? And there's all kinds of issues with that from like a health standpoint. But I got to imagine, like you were saying, self-selecting in the wild with pets. I got to imagine a long, long time ago, maybe, early to mid 1900s, we were probably just going down the road and going, hey, let's get some of that cow's milk. And if you have any of the concentrated stuff, that would really help my sick dog or sick kid, or, I have a little bit of upset stomach. So I have no doubt that this was probably being used pretty regularly, but we've just kind of gotten away. And it's also for humans in just liquid form, it's not as appetizing. I will say, there's a little issue. Now, when we go into like kind of what the colostrum that we're using is we are using a product that is like specifically designed for pets. The human products that I've seen in the market, I'm not crazy about. Just weird story, I actually prefer our pet product better, because a lot of the human products have a much lower fat content. And I think fat is extremely important when you're talking about dairy and setting up gut health and all the different beneficial ingredients that come in a higher fat colostrum. It's also, you're removing a lot of that fat and increasing some other things, and we can talk about that. But with pets, palatability is a big issue. So we're mixing our colostrum with our hemp, and we did that for a number of reasons, which I could talk about. And we also added a little bit of organic blueberry powder just to kind of sweeten it up. And plus it adds kind of more antioxidants than are already in the colostrum. So we really thought about this hard and long, to make sure that we're having a product that's really unique for what we commonly heard now 7 years ago with pet health issues.
Yeah, so my thing with colostrum is that I work with so many dogs, well, pet parents who have dogs that have gut issue. They have leaky gut. Like most of the clients I have, their dogs have some form of, like, they have food sensitivities going on. They've been down the route of Cytopoint, Apoquel, hydrolyzed protein diets, like nothing is working, and then they find me. And so having products like this where I'm like, okay, let's give this a try, because it is so beneficial to, as you were talking about, like it sets up the immune system for the baby mammal, right?
Yep.
So whatever animal we're talking about. And I think too, it's the combination probably of like a vaginal birth and then the colostrum, because we need both of those things.
Yeah.
We know that animals like that are born through C-section, humans included, are not as healthy because they're not getting. It's really, really interesting. I don't remember who I was listening to at AHVMA last year, but it was one of the veterinarians talking about how, like, they've actually somehow mapped out, as an animal is giving birth, somehow the body just knows to send like all the microbes down to like the vaginal canal. And it is really interesting to listen to people who, like, even a human, because like I know somebody who was really, really sick while she was at AHVMA last year, and she was born through C-section. She's like, I have just had problems my whole life. I'm like a sickly person. Yep. I hate it. I'm trying everything. And I actually gave her some human colostrum while we were there because I had just had some with me because I sometimes will just travel with it to have it on hand.
Yeah.
And so anyway, it's like I think it's the combination of both, but the we don't even know. First of all, we don't even know everything that's in milk, like raw milk. So I imagine we don't even know everything that's in colostrum.
I mean, I'll just go down the list real quick. So what we know is in colostrum, especially like a good quality colostrum that is lab tested. So just like the cannabis side, just like the mushroom side, we are really big on third party lab testing, or at least getting a COA from suppliers when we get our raw materials. And just going down the list, what we do know is in a good quality colostrum, there's vitamins, trace minerals, antioxidants, um, amino acids, immunoglobulins, which are the really big thing that we call out on the labels. There's growth factors, there's prebiotics, there's milk oligosaccharides that are really unique to colostrum. That's the only thing you can get them from. They're isolated a lot of times and put into pet foods, I've noticed. But these unique milk oligosaccharides are really unique in feeding good bacteria and helping get rid of the bad. So there's so many, like, the way I compare it is like, if you had to take the most nutrient dense food on earth, I would say eggs and colostrum are kind of like right neck and neck of just having so many unique properties that can help us just be healthier and get us a lot of calories and also help our gut, and all these different factors that can come into play. There's antioxidants, there's antimicrobials, there's adaptogenic compounds. It's a really complete and balanced, like, and I hate saying that because we kind of have issues with that on the food side, but realistically, like, if you have a pet that you're weaning off of, let me give you an example. So like a cow that comes from another farm, or let's say I'm a dairy farm down the road, or I have cows that the mothers aren't producing enough of this colostrum. It is very often used way after the calf is born, because that calf is having a ton of issues, and you can't just keep running antibiotics. You can't just keep running these different interventions that are more on the pharmaceutical side. So a lot of these farms will source colostrum the same way we're doing for our product, to give that calf a little bit better chance and allow them to have something more natural to their lifespan.
Yeah. I want to talk a little bit. You mentioned that you kind of give people a different way to use it,
Yeah.
but there's actually two questions here. Carrie Lynn 23 says, "Can dogs build a tolerance to it? Colostrum helped me get my dog off of Apoquel for 6 months, and now he's having flare-ups." So I know what I would ask. What do you think about that?
Yeah. So again, I think a big factor that I've seen is the immunoglobulin, or IgG is the way we label it on the label. I've found that a lot of pet products or pet specific products can have an extremely high IgG count. And what I understand about how these products are formulated is, the more IgG you concentrate into a colostrum, the less the fat goes down. And in preparation for this call, I was looking at some of the studies, and what I found is that there's a lot of side effects with those higher IgG products. So a lot of human products have that higher immunoglobulin count as well, and I do hear that. One of the main things we were looking for is, we don't want the human version. We actually want a higher fat content for the pets, but also I've just found it just feeds out better from like a daily use standpoint. Now, what I say just overall with supplements is, it's never a bad idea to cycle off for a little bit. One, that allows you to see kind of how you felt, or how the animal feels on it versus how they feel off of it for an extended period. And two, I think it's just good practice just to see, was it really helping? Was it actually helping, and can you incorporate it back in and see a significant response that way? So I don't think it's a bad thing to cycle off supplements in general. But I think if there's a severe issue, we've had this product for 7 years, and I have customers that relied on it since the day we launched it. They, exactly like you're talking about, they cannot figure it out. They've tried the hydrolyzed protein. They've done antibiotics to get rid of whatever issue. They've done pre and pro and all these different things that you see sold widely or put into other things, and in a treat or whatever. And I'm being a little bit like bragging, but I'll put our colostrum up against it. And I think it's because we've seen that for 7 years now, where we really see just a stronger effect, whether it's transitioning from a food, you're spinning your wheels, your pet's gut is all over the place. If you switch food, it's going to be a mess in the house. We've really seen where they couldn't find any other answers. They started putting this on the food. Now, how to use it, that's a different conversation too. And if they have a stronger IgG, usually the dosage is like a tiny speck. And we can get into why we changed our suggested dosage on our gut health.
Okay. Yeah, and I also, just because this is something I work with regularly, I always get
It's okay.
I want to get the pet on a fresh food diet, but I also want to keep rotating with even if we do supplements, and I do prefer, food supplements like
Yep.
colostrum, targeted like fermented vegetables, that kind of thing. When I do supplements, I still like to rotate them, and I also want to make sure that we can pull supplements. We can also rotate supplements. So there's like a lot we're feeding, because that is a very important part of it, especially if we're talking about, this sounds probably like leaky gut, though there could be like underlying heavy metal toxicities and things that need to be addressed as well. So Christina Welch 5 says, I have 8.5-week-old German Shepherd. Would giving him colostrum have any benefits?
Definitely. I mean, I know German Shepherds are typically a little bit more sensitive. Couple things on that front. We are still adding our CBD into that product, but it's at a much more minimal dosage. And what I say with puppies, they have a developing system, specifically a cannabinoid system. And we know so little about that system. So we only found out about it 30 years ago or 40 years ago, pushing. And the reality is we don't know what a developing animal taking CBD regularly would do. However, it is at such a small amount. And if the pet is having a real issue, and I specifically recommend it with pets that are, typically coming up from reservations in New Mexico that are, with Giardia and things like that. I always recommend this to them, because it's like, we just got to get their system back online. So if your pet is having, sensitivities right away, and you're kind of already starting to spin your wheels where you're changing foods or you're adding pumpkin in all the time, because pumpkin has a shelf life on how long that's going to keep clearing up diarrhea. I would say you can start with small amounts for a puppy and not have too much of an issue, because we're just trying to get the gut back online to doing what it's supposed to do. And that's absorbing nutrients and helping that animal grow in a healthy way.
So, okay, you have the IgG listed on here as 14%. And the question is, what percent would be considered high IgG content?
So I've seen anywhere upwards in pet products up to like 40%. And the scoop is probably like a speck, like you're literally putting a little bit. And those products probably work if there's like a really bad like blowout, and the pet is just like making a mess all over the place. You can put that little bit amount, and you can probably sneak that in a little bit easier than maybe ours. However, I don't think that's something that you can give to that animal on a regular basis without having kind of them reverting back, because it's like, you're putting such a concentrated form of just one of the compounds, where ours is a little bit more complete. So our 14% is just enough. And the way we talk about immunoglobulins is like, it's not like a probiotic where it's adding a ton of good bacteria and just hoping for the best, or where the prebiotic side is like, we're feeding good bacteria, we're helping the natural production of good bacteria. It's literally balancing good and bad, because you don't want too much of either in some cases. So immunoglobulins their whole goal is to balance that good and bad bacteria. So what we feel and what we've seen over the past 7 years of using that product is, if they can just sprinkle even a small amount, especially with like a picky dog. You have a small dog. I've had small dogs. Even just sprinkling a little bit on the food is just a starting point. And with any supplement, our regular suggestion is start low and go slow. Low and slow is always the way with most supplements, especially ones that are in concentrated forms.
Yeah. Okay. So, Carrie Lynn is saying the one she uses is 38%.
It's really high. It's okay. It's okay if it's like, you're for break glass if needed, emergency situations. However, ours is made to be more of a daily, or even like once a day. I like giving it to my dog at night, because if you think about a pet with like GI upset, they're not going to get very good sleep. And so I want to settle her tummy. So when if in the case that she does go to the bathroom before bed, that her tummy is nice and settled, she's absorbing those nutrients and getting quality sleep. So I really like it at nighttime. We even have like bundles on our site that we say like, hey, do our functional mushrooms in the day, because that's going to, help with just natural, coherent energy. And then at night, give them the colostrum to help them rest and kind of relax. And colostrum does have some calming effects. When you think about a GI upset, that's stress, or could be stress related. So the more we can calm them down naturally with a whole food like this, I
Yeah.
think the better.
So, okay, why are you adding whole plant hemp extract and organic blueberry powder? And
Yeah.
like, what does that benefit? Because that is very different.
Yeah. So when we looked at it, so there's a couple factors. Let's just take the idea of a pet parent having an issue with inflammatory bowel issues. They're just cats or dogs in this regard. We looked at it and said, okay, when we look at the research on the cannabinoid system, where are a lot of these receptors, specifically the immune modulating or balancing receptors in the body? CB2 receptors are super concentrated in the gut. Surprise, surprise. Our immune system is often found in the gut. So what our receptors do, and what CBD does in this case, is it works retroactively. So when you have neurotransmitters, they send a signal and then something happens, whereas CBD goes in and it goes, hey, there's actually something we need to correct. So when you think about a pet with GI upset, what we're trying to do is say there's an inflammatory issue here. And we felt that adding that little bit of CBD, even a small amount, in conjunction with the colostrum, we're helping kind of bring down that inflammatory response. So basically what we're saying is we're trying to encourage that natural inflammatory response to help that overall issue in the body. And again, the best way to explain it is like, we're trying to get their system back online. We're not trying to say, hey, we're going to fix everything. We're trying to say, hey, immune system, let's get back online and do what we're supposed to do.
I like that. And
So for the blueberry powder, really simply, we were worried about palatability with the hemp. Because there's a very unique form of the CBD that we're using called keef, or hippies used to call it bubble hash. But this is a CBD form. So basically we are mechanically separating the medicinal compounds from the plant. We're not using an extraction per se. So this is like the purest form of the CBD from the plant. And the best way I can explain it, if you zoom in on a cannabis flower or bud, and it has all those little crystals on it, that's where the medicinal compounds are being held.
Mhm.
And when you pull that off the plant, you're basically getting pure plant. So there's no solvent involved like an ethanol or CO2, which is what we use for like our oils typically. It is like pure plant. So it's again another safer way to pull it off the plant, another safer way to give it to an animal and not have an issue. It's just we find that there's more compounds in it and it's just a more natural product. But on the blueberry side, the palatability was an issue because it has a funk. The colostrum is very like I would say a stinky cheese vibe, but we wanted to sweeten it up a little bit for those really picky pets. But then also organic blueberry powder has antioxidants as well. It's literally just freeze-dried blueberries that we're just mixing into it. So it does have a little bit of a color because of that. Whereas when we get it as a raw material in our facility, it is like, bright white. But once we add the blueberry, as you know, blueberry flakes and stuff like that can stain pretty easily. So it kind of homogenizes really well.
So, I'm still gonna try it, but it does smell. I just smelled it for the first time.
Yep.
It is very much like a stinky cheese, like you said.
But pets
And
like that.
they do. That's a thing. And I know that it is you have it labeled for dogs and cats.
Yeah.
So do you feel like it's palatable for cats as well?
Cats are 50-50 on anything. Name the most palatable. You can put tripe in some bowls for cats and they wouldn't touch it.
Yeah.
So what I say with any pet, and especially on our dosage that we've now changed. We used to say like, a half a scoop for 50 pounds. We've actually updated that to 1/3 to about a half a scoop, depending on the weight. So if you got an older label, I apologize, but we actually updated that suggested. And realistically, I've been, personally instructing pet owners to literally just start sprinkling it on the food, sprinkles. And the reason I say that is there was a study that was conducted on bovine colostrum and just putting it on, traditional kibble. And they were literally just sprinkling it on. And I don't have the measurements that they were using, but just looking at fecal scores from daily use of just sprinkling bovine colostrum daily were significantly improved. And so what they were doing is they were testing the fecal scores, but they were showing that, it does improve the immune response in the body. So even if you can just sprinkle a little bit, sneak the tiniest bit in for a cat, over time, that cumulative effect will allow them to start absorbing nutrients better. And so again, the way I talk about CBD and the way I'll talk about colostrum is like, hey, we're just a tool to get you the things that you need. Whether it's dealing with stress on the CBD side, it's like, hey, I just want to help your pet learn through the hard moment so they can help self-soothe. Or in the colostrum case, it's like, hey, the more they're absorbing the nutrients from their awesome food or maybe lower quality food, the better they're going to feel, the more personality they're going to have, and the less you're going to have them itching, scratching, doing weird stuff that you're like, all right, what are they doing? Why are they circling like they're going to go to the bathroom in the house?
Yeah. Well, and I think setting the immune system up for success is so underrated. And just everything that, first of all, the endocannabinoid system, being the master system of the body and controlling everything. Um, we have, there are so many things that we don't think about that when we look to food or supplements derived from food, like this, that maybe they're like unintended, like happy coincidences of things that happen in the body. Because I see people, especially like on social media, posting these things that have or are happening with their pets, and way off base of what they and their veterinarian, in my opinion, are looking at. um, and when we just look to food, when we just look to nature and what nature provides for us, um, like I was saying at the beginning, like we don't even know all the things that it really, especially when we are not extracting. because that's a big thing, especially in like the healthy pet space, like extractions from nature. When we use a plant or a food, or, an animal food, whatever, as nature intended it to be, we're getting all of the it's like all of the like, how do I want to say this? I don't know what the word I'm looking for, but like when we look at eating a piece of meat or a piece of fruit, like
Mhm.
as nature has provided it to us, versus like drying it out. So if we
Yeah.
have like if we're eating a dried piece of fruit, we've removed the moisture, and therefore our body just doesn't um, utilize it the
Yeah.
same way. We have a much higher sugar content, blah blah blah, all the things. Same
Right.
thing, like plant medicine, or and I don't mean that like we should be, obviously you
Yeah.
can't just be throwing around like gallons of colostrum everywhere, but like when we use things as nature intended, there's like this symphony going on in the body that we don't a lot of times don't even know how to full like we know some things. We know how vitamins and minerals interact and all the things, but we
Yeah.
don't know everything that's happening. So there are a lot of like happy coincidences that happen when we use products the way nature intended us to use them. So I like that, and that you're combining both the colostrum and the hemp plant, because those are two like powerhouses for health, I think.
Well, yeah, and we have to, I like using the phrase getting the body or the especially the gut back online. And when we can kind of just encourage the body to do what it's supposed to do that it hasn't been doing because of whatever, lifestyle issues that it's been dealing with, lower quality food, or, there's a allergy or an intolerance. I really like just kind of like, hey, we're just helping you, kind of get up a little bit easier and actually break down nutrients easier, or signal to the body that it needs to respond to these things that are inflammatory in the body. So I really like supplements in that regard. The kind of other example that comes to mind when you're talking about kind of as nature intended, it's like the difference between eating an orange versus, juicing 10 oranges and drinking, all that sugar. And it's like, you're not going to get nearly the same response. Your blood sugar is going to go through the roof drinking that orange juice, that very concentrated juice part of the fruit. So yeah, I think when we can look at, getting out of the way of Mother Nature, that's great. Now, I will preface, I am not like anti drug, because there are a lot of pets that, you have to put them on something because they're either hurting themselves, the allergies are so bad that they're starting to self-harm. But what I say is like the beauty of kind of clearing that specific issue up right away is now we can incorporate something natural like our gut health and go, well, now we need to replenish that system because we just wiped it out with a bunch of antibiotics. And I talked to Rita Hogan about that, and it's phenomenal for when you have a pet. Hey, you got to clear something up, and you might have to go that traditional route because your pet is in real bad shape, and that's why I love, traditional medicine for that reason. However, we can come in on the back end and go, hey, let's get the pet kind of operating a little bit more efficiently without having to show up to the vet every time this comes back around. And maybe that gives them a better chance and saves them money long term. However, like, I get it. It happens. Your pet gets into something that they shouldn't, or, they're a pet that literally was on the reservation and was not even intended to be, purposely bred, and has giardia and all kinds of stuff, and then is over vaccinated, whatever. We can at least get their system back online a little bit better with something more natural after the fact if they got to go through that traditional route. So I want to make that clear. Is like sometimes I've had plenty of friends that jumped on stuff and I'm like, oh, I wish I could have got to you sooner, but I didn't know that your pet was hurting themselves either. So
Yeah, no, that is an important point. I'm not anti either. I just think we need to use them appropriately. So, there are a lot of pharmaceuticals that are overprescribed and then prescribed for way longer than they should be, that have really detrimental side effects. So it's not like you know, if we use them as a band-aid, I think that's how they're intended to be used. And I think that's the benefit of modern
Yeah,
medicine is that it can help us get through things.
totally.
So being that it isn't, to me, this isn't a product that is necessarily available to every, I don't know how many million dogs and cats in the world, but what would your focus be for who should be utilizing a product like this?
So, we've had 7 years, so like we take feedback. We listen to the pet owners. When I was using it, I had a dog, um, and since then I've had multiple dogs that were in their senior years or their golden years, and I used it daily, and I saw excellent stool quality. The pickup in the yard was not a mess. My daughters now pick up the poop, so they give me the feedback. So I had no issue with using it, but every pet is so different, especially adoptions. These rescues come in, we have no background on their trauma, and neither does the adoption a lot of times. So we really don't know what is causing any kind of stress. So I would say the majority of pets can try this. Obviously, cats are going to be a little bit trickier with palatability. But if you have a rescue, which a lot more pets, predominantly are rescues as opposed to traditional breeding, um, I would definitely say, from like hey, I'm bringing them home. They were feeding whatever the rescue can get. This would be a great way to go, hey, I want to feed the best food I could possibly feed or afford. This would be a great way to kind of transition them off maybe the gas station kibble that the rescue got donated, like, and I'm not faulting rescues for that, but it's just like sometimes they feed what they
Yeah.
got. So you get the dog and you're like, what are you feeding? I know a little bit, I have this pet and I feed them, raw or, home cooked or whatever. Maybe that's a better way to transition them to the higher quality food. So on the other side, if they are traditionally bred, there's so much, confusion on like, genetics and what that plays into. So what has the breeder been feeding their line of animals, let's say a Labrador? What have they been feeding for like the past, 10 years in their breeds? That could be an issue because then they're prone to XYZ. I hear this a lot with German Shepherds. And so, they would be a great example of like, yeah, they're just prone to that because of their breed standards and whatever they think is being fed. A lot of breeders are kind of in a tough spot because it's really expensive to feed whole foods and real food nutrition. So a lot of times they get with some of the bigger brands and stay on some of the bigger kibbles or wet foods, which is okay because they don't want to have to deal with diarrhea with every litter over and over and over, and it's hard to kind of transition off of that. And that's a whole nother conversation. But um still, when I buy that animal from a breeder, it's like I still got to fix this, and I can't be chasing my tail, spending thousands of dollars on food, vet bills, and then I also spent thousands of dollars on this really high end breed that I got or whatever. I think they're another option. So we have rescues, breeder dogs, and puppies that are weaned too early. I really think it's important that we kind of get something in them. A lot of these milk replacements are literally just like Franken products that are mimicking colostrum when we can just use a lower IgG, more high fat colostrum. So if you want to use the milk replacement, I totally get it. But you can also include this. It might be a little too much. But again, I always say with any supplement, especially a powder, you can just start low and go slow.
Yeah. I'm a big fan of fat. I think people we have been conditioned to fear fat and not want it in our dairy, not want it in our meat. Like
Mhm.
we we are doing so much harm to our bodies, and I think that kind of trickles down to our pets, by looking for all this like less fat, no fat, like please stop.
Yeah.
It's always like, please
I,
stop. Go ahead.
I'm from Wisconsin, so, we're surrounded by dairy farms. And, it's so funny. They started selling some milk with kind of like the fat layer on top, and people are kind of grossed out by that. But I was like, that's kind of what we grew up around, and, drinking it, fresh from the tap, I would say. But it's so good for you. And yeah, I mean, just for us, like, just from like a hair, nails, and skin, it's super healthy for us. If we can get it raw, that's great. But not every state has that access, and not everybody lives right down the road from a dairy farmer.
Yeah, no, that's true. But I think also with like our hormones and well, I mean, females have different hormone cycles than males, and so it's a
Totally. Yep.
bigger issue. But yeah, like don't don't be shy about fats. I'm in fact like so many people ask me a lot actually a lot of my students ask me all the time like how to put weight on animals and I'm like add some fat to that diet. Like,
Yeah. And I try to explain the colostrum. It is a little bit higher price point than just adding like, broth or, just animal fat or even coconut oil, things like that. But I mean, if I was like, hey, here's, number one option I would go with, it's like eggs or colostrum if you can, or goat's milk. But yeah, it's just sometimes you got to put weight on them any way you can. And there are a little bit cheaper forms.
and so you've talked about it, but we haven't said it in these terms. And I like to try to like bridge gaps for people because I do talk quite a bit about reproductive foods. They are my favorite foods. So, like you were talking about eggs, colostrum, raw milk, even bee pollen. I don't think we know the extent of the benefits of bee pollen either, but I am a big fan of incorporating bee pollen into foods, especially for our pets, local, if we can get local bee pollen. And so, like, just reproductive foods in general are nutritional powerhouses because they have to be. Like, that's what nature has given us and, each different species to um, build the next generation the healthiest they can possibly be. And so, those are some of the best things that we can be feeding and eating ourselves, I think.
For sure.
So thank you for incorporating all that. So I'm gonna try this.
Awesome. You were talking about female hormones and stuff like that. We were talking about just, breastfed versus not breastfed. Yeah. I'll just give you an example. Both of my kids were breastfed. But what I found is one of them was not breastfed as long. And so their immune system tends to, they get sicker easier than the other one. And the other one, tends to not get the same sicknesses when the whole house is getting it. So
Yeah.
I just noticed that in general. And just like other kids that, are more on the formula stuff, I've just found that like, well, one, it saves you a ton of money, but two, just the health that you get from, that mother's milk is such a different thing. And I think it really helps their immune system long term and sets up their gut health. So they're not irritated or intolerant to so many different things.
Yeah. Okay. I completely agree. And I mean, I think, again, our food system, which is so broken, and I'm so glad people are starting to talk about it here lately. It like people high up are starting to talk about it, which is wonderful. But they push onto women and telling them that it's the same thing. Like it's not. It is absolutely different.
Yeah.
But that's so. How much of this should I try?
For your guy, how much? Oh, so for you, I put a full. I'm actually, I'm the wrong person to ask when it comes to myself. I put a pretty healthy scoop in my smoothie every day, and I add more blueberries and all that stuff. So yeah, that's plenty. Yeah, totally.
All right, I'm just gonna I just have a little bit of water.
Oh boy, you're just gonna go straight on the water. I have to mix it with
I
oatmeal
do.
and stuff.
I do.
You're braver
So
than I am.
wear my Earth Buddy shirt to be like, okay. So
I have to show you this shirt while you're doing that.
okay.
I wore this.
It's so cute.
It has nothing to do with what we were talking about. We were talking about mushrooms, but
Yeah,
relative in the immune system side.
for sure. Okay, I probably should have
Mushroom.
brought like a spoon to. All
Yeah,
right. It does smell really bad. I will
I
admit.
can't believe you're doing it in water. I would do it in a smoothie. This is not recommended.
That's very. It does. It's very cheesy almost.
Oh my gosh. I will have to give you some of just the raw colostrum next time, so it's a little bit less, but the hemp doesn't do it any favors, because it's just kind of a combo.
I mean, it wasn't horrible,
Okay,
but it wasn't
good.
great.
Yes, I will send you my recipe for smoothies in the future, and I blend it up in a little ninja blender with blueberries, a banana, and a protein, and I do that usually probably 4 to 5 days a week, and yeah, it really does help me because I don't like eating middle of the day, so kind of sustains me, and it's a ton more calories, and it really helps kind of the protein powders that don't necessarily always help your gut as much. So
Yeah, I've been on a so I don't do breakfast. I try to eat between 12 and 6, sometimes 12 and 7.
Mhm.
And so like I'll just do an egg and then raw milk with protein powder and dinner. That's my typical day. Um, but that's just me.
but that's tons of nutrients so that you're getting out of all that.
Right.
So yeah, it's
Yeah.
great.
Okay, it wasn't horrible. It like I thought it
Okay.
might give a flavor, a taste in my mouth. I really don't have much of a taste in my mouth, so not
Okay,
bad.
good. I thought you were gonna dry scoop it like the gym people. I was like, okay, there we go. Yeah, that would be intense. I don't recommend that for sure.
I don't think I could do that. But how can people find and try this product for their pets?
Yeah, if they want to learn more, go to our learn page at earthbuddypet.com and then just click on learn and you'll see colostrum as a drop down. We cite a lot of the studies that we use to kind of formulate the gut health product, just around, GI and the endocannabinoid system, and then all the colostrum research that's out there. And then if they want to go by, it's just earthbuddypet.com and you can look up gut health. We have 2 different sizes, and I can't stress enough, if you're chasing your tail and you can't quite figure out what's going on, start with this, give it time. It's not gonna be a drug, it's not gonna just fix everything overnight, but at least your pet can start absorbing nutrients better, and then hopefully that immune system will come back online and allow them to respond to those environmental or dietary issues that they've been having. So yeah, I think if we can help more pets with upset tummies, that's the goal, because that's going to keep them a lot healthier and a lot happier a lot longer.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, thank you so much for all of this information on colostrum. Like I said, I'm very, very picky about brands that I recommend because I mean, that's very interesting that you brought up that like the industrialized farming just kind of tosses it. And
No.
it's hard because one, you don't want any product to go to waste, but also on the other hand, like I wonder if it has as much benefit because of how they're raised and the foods they're eating. And so there's like that toss up, but I mean, it's got to be better than nothing. So
Yeah, well, they're loading them up with growth hormones and things like that. We want them bigger. We got lots of beef to produce and things like that. So I understand that side, but I also think there's also a health risk involved in taking that excess colostrum and trying to monetize it in a lot of cases with these industrial farms. So yeah, they're in a tough spot, and that's just a whole bigger conversation. the good thing is that we did a lot of research around that to make sure we're getting a quality source, and it's from our neighbors up north.
Well, thank you so much for that. Thank you for explaining the product. And guys, please go check out earthbuddypet.com. Earthbuddypet.com. I'm making sure I've got the URL
Yes.
right. Earthbuddypet.com, and give it a try for your dog and or cat. Actually, I would really love to know. I'm gonna try this with my cats and see.
Tiny amount.
Yeah, teeny tiny
Yes.
amount, and see what they think. Especially my cat with IBD, because he's interesting. He's my
Yeah, I would love to hear how that goes for you, and yeah, give us feedback. It's always good to hear on these things. You know, we've been doing more qualitative studies and releasing some of that data, like we did at Super Zoo. So one of the things, you know, we kind of went in list of importance of what people come to us for, and it was like stress, joint issues, and then the third would definitely be, you know, third, or you know, maybe 2A would probably be gut health, and then gut health kind of goes hand in hand with immune support. So we want to do some more qualitative studies with real world users. So hopefully we'll have something put together here in the next couple months, and trying to figure out, you know, how we want to roll that out. So we'd love more people to participate in them, and the bigger data sets we get, the more we're able to give more pet owners more specific advice on how to use these products. So
awesome. And in case you want to hear more from Sean at Earth Buddy, he has been on the podcast. So definitely check out the Pet Parenting Reset. You can go to the petparentingreset.com and find I have all of my guests listed, so you can like just click on the guest and go straight to their episodes, which is really cool. And of course, you can listen on Spotify and Apple and all the places. So thank you so much, Sean.
great podcast. I'm a fan. Thank you for having me on the live too. I really. Oh yes. Yeah. So yeah, Instagram knows me too well. It knows I'm a fan. It exudes my my inner thoughts. So. Thank you so much, Jess. And yes, let's get some pets guts on the right track.
Absolutely. All right, guys. Have a great rest of your day, and I will see you later.
Bye-bye.